Hello, Sackville, Year 11 and Year 10. I hope you guys are all doing well. I hope Parents' Evening was massively successful last week. We missed out, but we're back now with system threats. So let's see how we do with this. And I guess that the most important thing to think about here is how you actually need to cover this question. Can someone just say you can hear me in the comments, because that would be helpful. I'm assuming it's all going through okay. Yeah, my stream's looking good. Super. I can see a thumbs up. That's excellent. Right, system threats. System threats is, I think it's an area where you can actually pick up lots and lots of marks, because Robbo Jelly, thank you so much for that. That's very good. It wasn't looking great. I saw a red sign, but it appears to have sorted itself out. Playmore 1236, well done to you, and thank you for being here. This is wonderful. 2 of you. We've got more, actually. We've got 8 people watching it. This is outstanding. Okay, really, really good. So, hello, I'm Mr. GT. We're going to cover network threats. So we'll do about, 4 weeks worth of teaching in 45 minutes. That sound like a plan? It's all pretty straightforward. So this is a series of facts that you need to know about how to keep a network secure. And you've got 2 bits here. You've got what are the threats? And the second thing is how can you actually stop the threats from happening? So I will just jump in. If there's anything that I say and you think, what's he talking about? Just put a comment write in the comments and ask me, and I will obviously try and make sense of it. Let's do a really sort of quick intro here. Why is it important to keep systems secure? Because it means that your data is secure. This is all about having data stolen, and barely a week goes through without some organization having some embarrassing loss of data. Compromised networks means that it's bad for business, it can be bad for reputation, companies can lose money, they can also be taken to court. And of course you can see down here, I'm actually quite surprised how small this figure is actually, but e-commerce represents 1/5 of all global retail. I thought it was more, but there we are. And of course, the company needs to have email and has to be able to search the internet. So if someone takes a company's servers down, they can't do much, literally can't do very much. It's a bit like when we had the network going down and teachers were running around in circles that didn't have their PowerPoint. That's what they're used to using. So let's have a look at what the threats are and how you can stop them. Now, I have got a video on my YouTube site. I wasn't sure about showing you this because this is quite scary. But what's nice about this is that everything is on one page. So these are all the threats. So you've got to know what these are, understand them, and then for each one, just figure out what is it you need to do to prevent them. That's it. That's all this topic is. I was going to say, I've got a video on my YouTube channel where I've got a mind palace I've built. It's like a house in a thriller film. So all sorts of scary things happen in it. Go and watch that, because it might be a much easier way of learning it. So literally, I've put phishing at the bottom. I've put an SQL injection upstairs. Have a look at it and see what you think. When my students when we've done it that way, their marks have been about 1/3 better. So it's probably worth having a look at. But I'll let you have a look at that. Just have a look on my channel. So right, cybersecurity. So this is all about finding ways of preventing damage to networks from unauthorized access. Just some key words you want to throw in to sound like you know what you're talking about. First of all, you've got this notion of unauthorized access, and that is somebody who you don't want getting hold of your data and breaking into your systems and nicking stuff. People do it for different reasons. Sometimes it's for financial gain, sometimes it's just to have a laugh, sometimes it's because they disagree with the company. Like, for example, Anonymous, the hacking group, they do it because they try and take down sites of organizations who they don't like. For sort of moral reasons, if you like. So we're going to look at the ways that a cyber attack can be carried out and then how we can prevent them. All right, that's the grand plan. A 10-minute teach. It ain't going to be a 10-minute teach, but it's not going to be a huge amount longer. Okay, so let's start off by looking at my first threat. Hang on 2 seconds. Let me get down to there. There we go. Malware. If you do French, you know mal means bad. So they've done something very clever. They've said badware. So we know you've got software. So this is like badware, stuff that's bad for your computer. So hence the word mal. So you've got different types of malware, and malware is malicious code. Okay, so it's code that's been written by a hacker, by a programmer, and it's designed to cause as much damage as possible. And we've got various different versions of malware, different types. Viruses, which you've all heard of, and there's spyware as well, which tries to spy on what people are doing. But I'll jump into these in a little bit more detail now. Let's go on to here. There we go. Right, let's start with worms first of all. So worms are, and by the way, when you say, don't just say viruses. Virus is a type of malware. Worms are another type of malware. So you've got malware that kind of sits up here above, and then you've got worms and ransomware and adware and all this stuff that sits below it. So in your mind palaces, malware, and then you've got all the different types, okay? So worms and viruses are slightly different. However, in most ways, they're exactly the same. So they're similar in that they're self-replicating. If you think about coronavirus, it's self-replicating because it makes copies of itself, and then it infects lots of people, which is exactly how a virus works, which is why it's called a virus. Now, the difference between a worm and a virus is that a worm doesn't require a host program. So, for example, viruses, very often, they will go and install themselves in an email application, or they'll go on your web browser, and they need an application to sit inside, to inhabit, if you like, whereas worms don't. They can just exist in your system. So they don't require a host program, and that's how they're different to viruses. How do they work? They send copies of itself to other systems. The impact is it consumes bandwidth, and bandwidth is the speed at which you can move data around, and so it tends to really slow computers down, and it may be used as part of a DDoS attack, which is the most complex thing that I'll cover later. But as long as you understand most of it, it's fine. So those are worms. Key takeaways are self-replicating, don't require a host program, and that they consume bandwidth. And on my video that I now sort of tried to sell to you several times, I've got worms in a worm garden with rubber bands around their heads. The worms haven't got heads, but it's a way of remembering it, because some of this stuff is quite dry. So have a look at that video and see if you can use that to remember these things. It's a bit more interesting than just learning lots and lots of sets of words. So then we've got the one that everyone's heard of, which is the virus. What does it do? And by the way, all of these statements are taken from past paper questions. So this is what the markers want to see. Give the people what they want. What does a virus do? It replicates and embeds in the host program. So unlike a worm, which doesn't require a host program, like an email client like Outlook, a virus does. And so when you open your email, for example, then the virus is executed. And viruses often work by embedding themselves in emails, and then they look at your address list, and then they send. When you open your email, they send out they send out emails to everyone in your contact list, and that's how it gets spread. And then someone sees that you've sent them an email, and they open it because they trust you, and guess what? They've got the virus, and so on, and it gets sent to everyone in their address book. So what do? They corrupt data and delete files. Those two. Okay. So how does it work? Replicates and embeds itself, executed when host program executes, and then it corrupts data and deletes files. Notice there's a difference. Deleting files means the file has been deleted and gone, and corrupting means that the data within the file just doesn't do what it's supposed to do. It'll get damaged in some way, so probably it won't open and it won't function as you would wish. All right, I must stop pressing that button because it always takes me back to the start, which is really unhelpful. So I'm going to make a note to myself not to do that again. Right, we're back in the room. So we've done viruses, we've done worms. Now we have adware, and I think we've all probably come across adware. And don't worry, you're not hallucinating. This is flashing repeatedly. It will sort itself out in a second. So adware, what does it do? it uses it uses your browser history to send you targeted adverts. So, for example, if you were looking at, I don't know, adverts for some clothing, if you were looking at some clothing online and your system got infected with adware, you start to get served up lots of ads for different clothing brands. Okay, so it uses the browser history to target adverts to you. It tends to be irritating rather than dangerous. The plan here isn't to steal your data, to corrupt your data, to delete your files. It's to sell you things. They're very annoying though. And usually it's on websites where you shouldn't be, where adware will present itself. So, for example, if you're trying to watch a film for free on a dodgy stream, that's where it might happen. Don't use the word dodgy in the exam. My students use the word dodgy, and I did mock her a bit. So, dubious website. So if you try watching football for free, there'll be a lot of adware on there. So what it tends to be irritating rather than dangerous. It slows your computer down. It may crash it, but that tends to be what it is. Okay, so all of these are different forms of malware. And then we come to this one, which is ransomware. And this happened in a school which is actually between where your school is and where I teach. About 6 weeks ago, they had a ransomware attack, which meant that they couldn't access any of their files. So again, it's malicious code. So it's code that's been written to cause damage, hence the word malicious. So it's malicious code, and it's designed to lock or encrypt files. So you end up downloading it onto your system, and then suddenly you can't access any of your files. And it's a major problem. It's happened globally. There was a US police department that couldn't open any of its files because a hacker had locked it. They ended up paying the hacker the best part of $1 million to get their data back. Not that I'm putting ideas in your head, but and a school really close to us lost all of their data. And so when the students came in, they had to actually say, what's your name? What's your date of birth? Where do you live? Had to start completely again. Everything gone. So malicious code infects systems, locks and encrypts files, and they demand payment to unlock your files. You pay them, and they may or they may not unlock your files, but if you don't pay them, you'll never see your files again. So this is why backing up your data is so important. So mitigation. I want to just spend maybe 20 seconds boring you about this word. Mitigation is different from prevent. Mitigation means limiting the damage of, whereas preventing means stopping. Yeah. So many of these things you can mitigate, you can limit the likelihood of it happening, but you can't always prevent these threats. So mitigation is the key word there. For all of these threats, for any malware, all you have to do is install anti-malware software. So as long as you've got a key idea of the main malware, and we've talked about worms and viruses, we've talked about ransomware, we've talked about adware, for all of those, all you've got to do is just install anti-malware software and keep the virus definitions up to date, because new viruses get released all the time, which is why you pay a monthly fee for this stuff. You can ban USB drives. We're not allowed USB drives at school anymore. I'm not sure whether you are in your school. Because it's just such an easy way of importing a virus, usually by accident, but it's so easy. And obviously, we've got our way of banning access to certain websites is a thing called Smoothwall. You've probably got the same thing, that if you type in something questionable, Smoothwall will prevent you from accessing it. And your head of year might have a chat with you the next day. That's one of my jobs, which is sometimes quite amusing. But anyway, let's not get into that. So what is it? It's malicious code again. So that is how you prevent malware. So in your exam, they want you to understand what malware is, the different sorts of malware, and how do you prevent it, and just pick any of those. I've got a suspicion they could do quite a big question on this, because they didn't do anything. They didn't do very much on this in the last exam. But you know, I'm not able to see into the future, but I think that's a possibility. So this is a slightly odd one. Trojan Horse. Very briefly, Trojan Horse. Back in Trojan times, Troy was being attacked. What's the word when they surround a city? it was being laid siege to. There we go. I knew it would come back to me. So Troy was being laid siege to. They had big walls. The attacking army couldn't get in. So the attacking army, in the end, after a year, because these things went on for ages, these sorts of attacks, these sieges, and they built a wooden horse and left it outside the city walls, and then they went away. Or so the people inside Troy thought. So they waited a day or two and they thought, oh, these people have left a peace offering because we've been so good at resisting their attacks. So they wheeled the horse in, had a party, all went to bed, and then inside the horse were soldiers who then opened the gates and they went in and killed them all. Sorry, it wasn't a very happy ending to that story, but this is what a Trojan horse is it appears to be an application that you download from the internet that is useful, but actually it's a program that contains a virus or some kind of malicious code. So, for example, on the internet, you see you can download an application to turn a PDF into a Word document or to unlock a PDF. And you download it, you use it, it does exactly what it's supposed to do, but it's also going to steal some of your data. It could be a keylogger, it could be a virus. It's used to try and steal your financial information to work out your passwords, so then they can go and try and steal your data or commit identity fraud. So that is a Trojan horse. So it's not actually a piece of malware. It's more a method of attack, often used as part of a DDoS attack, which we will come to later on. Almost pressed the same button again. Here we are. Okay, strap yourselves in, because this is quite complicated, a DDoS, right? But this is how a DDoS attack works. The premise, the reason for doing it is quite simple. If you think about a big company, let's think of Xbox. Xbox have got servers. Servers are big, powerful computers with loads and loads of storage, which if you buy a game, you will connect to their server and you will download the game after you've paid for it, right? That's how it works. And we know we talked about client-server relationship. You're the client, the server is serving you up files or documents to print or web pages or whatever, okay? So a DDoS attack works like this. First of all, lots of different computers become infected with a virus. So a hacker releases a virus. It could be through a Trojan horse. It could be any type of malware. But you end up with this same piece of malware being downloaded onto thousands or hundreds of thousands of computers. Once the attacker wants the attack to take place, the hacker then just basically turns on the computers. It activates the code. So all of these computers, possibly around the globe, that have this piece of malicious code there, they all start to do the same thing. They all start to attack Xbox. They start to attack Xbox servers. And they do it in quite a clever way, because this server-client relationship works by the client, you, sending the server, Xbox, a request, like, give me a game. I want to download this game. There's 85 quid. It's the outrageous amount they charge for games now, okay? So, except it won't actually, when the attack happens, it asks half questions, incomplete questions, which means the server struggles to answer it, and it's harder to try and deal with a question that makes no sense than it is to answer. I try this with students in class. If you say to someone, what's 5 plus 5, they'll go 10. If you say, what's 5, there's an awkward silence, and you think, well, what? And that's what's happening to the server. So if you've got hundreds of thousands of computers with this virus on them, bombarding the Xbox servers with incomplete questions, it ends up knocking over the servers. It just knocks them over. It breaks them. So this means that then they can get in and steal data. That's the idea. If you've seen a hacked website or had your own, I think you're right. I think that is a very good point, and thank you for stopping me. I'll go through it. I'll go through it again, and I'm going to be much simpler and slower, okay? Right. A denial of service attack is a way in which you can bring down a website or a server. And it's done by having thousands of computers that have been infected because they've downloaded a virus. So say, for example, there are 100,000 people, maybe like me, who don't want to pay to watch all of their football games. I'm just saying maybe, right? And you go onto some dubious website and you start to watch a football match. But as you're watching it, a virus gets downloaded onto your computer. You don't know it's there. It makes no difference. Your team wins, your team loses, you go about your life. But you, along with hundreds of thousands of other people, have got this piece of code sat there on your computer. And at some point, the hacker will activate that code, will send out a signal, okay? Which means that your computer and another 100,000 computers will simply start to send requests to Xbox's servers to say, give me this, give me this, give me this, give me this. Xbox's servers can't cope with it. So if you think about it, you've seen that if you want to have a website that can handle 20, 30,000 people at a time, you've got to pay more because it requires a lot of bandwidth. It requires a lot of... It's something you would pay for. So Xbox wouldn't be expecting to have this extra traffic, so it's simply knock over their servers. And if you knock over someone's server, their website effectively, or part of their website, it means that you can then get in and steal data. If you've ever seen a website that's been hacked, it literally looks like a folder structure. You can just go in and open up the files and take stuff away. So that's what they're aiming to do. Does that make sense? That's kind of... It is quite hard. It is quite hard, a DDoS attack. It's the most difficult thing in this section. But the notion is lots of computers infected with the virus, and then those computers then try and bring... You're not doing it, but your computer is. Okay, what about that? Is that any better? Go back and look at this. These are the kind of facts there. And this zombie computer, this thing here... That would be your computer. And that's why it's called a zombie, like, Day of the Dead, all right? Is that your computer is simply doing what it's told by somebody else. You don't control that part of it. I hope that helps slightly. Oh, look at that. I've taught somebody something, which is quite handy. It happens occasionally. I hope that makes sense. By the way, if the DDoS thing doesn't make sense, it's not the end of the world. This is one tiny part of this topic, but it is the hardest bit, but that's the sort of story behind it, okay? My students struggle with this as well. There's a lot of moving parts to a DDoS attack, okay? And there's the kind of, why does it do it? If you just want to learn some phrases, use this. I've done the slightly easier bit. Its purpose is to keep the system busy so it can't cope with authorized users. What does it do? It bombards a website with data packets to try and make it crash. And it renders a system useless. So you can talk about the impacts quite easily, okay? That's what a DDoS attack does. How can you prevent it? One word, firewall, okay? A firewall can be hardware or software, and you program it to inspect all of the data packets coming into your system. Again, I've got to go and teach you something else now. So when data moves around, it doesn't move around in big chunks. It moves around in little packets. So if you're sending a file, it gets chopped up into packets and it gets sent in those individual packets and then reassembled at the other end, like a jigsaw. Well, in fact, like a road bridge. They closed down the M25 to put some new footbridges across it. Those footbridges come in, 10 or 15 different parts that they then send by lorry and then put them together. It's the same idea, okay? So a firewall inspects all those packets to make sure that they aren't malicious. The word malicious is good for this topic. Where are we? 23. The worst of it is over, I promise you. Now we're on to the man-in-the-middle attack. Imagine you are sending data from your phone to somebody else with a phone. The man-in-the-middle attack means somebody is intercepting that data and stealing it as it goes from you to the other person. The other person will still get the data, but someone's taken a copy of it. And that's why I mentioned this thing about packets, that data is sent in packets, because there is such a thing as packet sniffing software. It sounds a bit dubious, doesn't it? But it literally means it's a piece of software that can track the packets of data being sent, and it simply copies them. So if you're sending data from one place to another, your data could be intercepted. Now, you can't prevent that from happening. Sending it through a cable, a wide connection, that's much safer. It's very difficult to hack cabled connections, or more difficult, but possible, but more difficult. But it uses packet sniffing as the traffic passes by. And this is the fancy way they put it, that it's a way of the hacker accessing the path the communication's going on, okay? So that's the man-in-the-middle attack. So you ask, what can you do to prevent it? Well, the answer is encryption. And I've got all of my students like some kind of strange cult to repeat, turning plain text into ciphertext. That will get you a mark in the exam, I'm almost certain. So that's what happens when you encrypt data. You take plain text and you turn it into ciphertext. Why do you do that? Because it makes the data unintelligible if intercepted. Some students say, someone's given me a thumbs down, it can't be that bad. It makes data unintelligible if intercepted, which means that people might get hold of your data, but it doesn't actually make any sense because it's all garbled. It's been coded. An algorithm has been run to turn it into something else. And unless you've got the key to open it, it's no good. So encryption is the way that you can prevent against the man-in-the-middle attack or data interception. Okay, same thing. Good. So that is that one. Let's go on to the next one. Right, SQL. There's a lot of explaining here. SQL stands for Structured Query Language. So, for example, when you are watching Netflix, you're watching a bunch of films that have been uploaded to a database. And like, I don't know whether you use Sims at school, your teachers use Sims to take the register, we use Sims, that's another database. And it covers things like, it's got your details, where you live, it's got how many achievement points or commendations or whatever you call them, it's got the subjects that you do, etc., etc., etc. All of those details are held there. So this is a way of attacking databases. And of course, databases sit underneath most of what we do. Still 9 people here, done really well today, guys. So an SQL injection, if you imagine that you're logging into a database, so say, for example, you are logging into Netflix, an SQL injection would be that rather than just typing in your username and your password, you type in your username, but in the password field, you add some extra code. You add some SQL code, because SQL is the language that is used to write queries for databases. What's a query? It's a question. Many moons ago, I used to work for Virgin Megastores, and there were preset queries that were set up. So, for example, top 10 albums, top 10 best-selling films. So it's a question that you can ask the database. Who are the top 10 best-selling salespeople? Who are the top 5 worst-selling salespeople? And then you can sack them. So SQL injections are a way of questioning your database, okay? That's what SQL is used for, structured query language. So SQL injection is something you can add into the password field when you log into a database to try to gain access to it, which means that you could steal data. So that's why you might use that. So the aim is, it's inserting malicious code or SQL code, a malicious query to try to gain unauthorized access. Because that means you could steal data, couldn't you? You could steal credit card numbers, you could steal financial information, you could gain higher level access and try to, you could sell the people's addresses, which are worth a lot of money. And the aim is to steal, destroy data or financial gain. That's usually what SQL injections are. So it's literally, rather than just putting in your password, you'll put in some extra code to try and gain access to the computer. But this is for databases. I'm hearing myself say this. It's quite complicated, isn't it? But that's how SQL injections work. What can you do to prevent it? It's down here. Input validation, which means that on your databases, you set up a system so that when someone types in a username and password, there's a system that actually checks it to make sure that there's no extra SQL code in there. So after all my waffle, all you really need from this one, I'll go back to here, all you really need are these here. And again, learn those 3 statements. If everything that I just said to you, you're thinking, please stop talking, just learn those 3 phrases, okay? It's a malicious SQL query inserted into an input field to gain unauthorized access to steal data. You're never going to need more than that, but I think having the story probably helps a bit. How can you prevent it? 2 words, input validation. And I shouldn't say this out loud, but even if you've got no idea what input validation means, it'll still get you a mark in the exam. So that's what you need to say. And we have reached that point, haven't we, where this is now all about the exams. Okay, this one is much easier to get your head around. This is social engineering, tricking people. There was a story in the news yesterday about the hospital where one of the royals had been to have a procedure, and there were journalists ringing up trying to get information out of the hospital and tricking them into saying that they were family or friends, okay? So what is social engineering? It's tricking people. It's trying to get people to make mistakes and give away information, okay? Or tricking people into clicking a link on an email, a phishing scam. So these are ways of tricking people, and it's the idea of humans being the weak point in any system. And there are various different types of social engineering. First of all, we have farming, spelled with a PH, of course. Farming. So, for example, it's when criminals change the IP address, the web address of a website, so that you're actually sent to a fake website instead. So you think you're going to a respectable website, but actually it takes you to a cloned version of it. That people try and do this with banks all the time because they want to get all of your details, all of your sensitive data, your passwords and so on. So it sends you to a fake website and then it tries to trick you into giving away information. So that's farming, and that involves changing the IP address stored in DNS. I talked about DNS last week. So that is farming. The other one we can look at is, I actually want to go, did I do this after here? No, I'm going to go back to, hang on a second. Let's go to here, because this was here. The other key one you need to know is phishing, spelt with a PH. This one here. Example of a phishing scam. I mean, there are some dreadfully bad ones. You get an email saying, good evening, I am Lord Barumo of Outer Mongolia, and you've been selected from thousands of people because we need to bring some money into the country. You will earn £5 million sterling if you simply send me your passport details and your credit card, because we've heard you're a very reliable person. And if you were regular Joe, it is good to have you here. Don't worry you're late. The good thing is, or the bad thing is, I suppose, depending upon where you are with this, is that I will, when I finish this, maybe tonight or tomorrow, I'll put in the chapter heading so you can go through this and go through it one by one. But you may well find on my YouTube site, if only I made money from it, there are 3 videos on this. One, there's a waffly one at the start on why is system security important. Don't watch that because it's very boring. But there are 2, one about what the threats are and one about mitigation. They're quite good and really to the point. And there's also a video on how you can learn it with the Mind Palace. Give that a go. I've got a separate Mind Palace thing on coding that you might find useful. Give it a go. Have a look. See what you think. You can always play it on double speed, unless annoying that way. So phishing, seeking to acquire sensitive information like bank details through tricking people to click on a link. So you click on a link and then you realise you've downloaded something to your computer or something really bad has happened and you can't deal with it, okay? So that is phishing, which was the other one. Now I can move on. I'll stop jumping around like a mad frog. Okay, brute force attacks. So this is when someone tries to hack into your account, okay? So criminals will use trial and error to hack into your account. And this is why when you, I mean, it's ridiculous now, when you create a new, a new account for any company online, you have to have a password that is 12 characters, has a number, has a special character, has this, has that. And of course, you never remember these things. But this is because of brute force attacks. And the reason they don't advise you to use a dictionary word is because when these criminals are carrying out brute force attacks, they've got a little gadget which has got all of the dictionary words on there, and it can, in under a second, it can check every single dictionary word that exists to see if you've been daft enough to use that as your password, and it can combine it with numbers. So that's why they try to encourage you not to do that. And this brute force attack has got it's trial and error. Is it this? No. Is it this? No. Is it this? No. Is it this? No. And it'll keep trying until it gets into your account. Unless, and this is where it comes on to the next bit, you have done any of these things, okay? They love this question at GCSE. So ways that you can limit or mitigate against a brute force attack is to make a password really hard to guess. So 8 characters, a combination of lower and uppercase. And you recognise this from every account you've ever made when you go online, because this is what it makes you do now. The thing is, though, I imagine you do what I do, which is use exactly the same password for everything, which is a really bad idea as well. So don't use dictionary words. You could also take away, deny access after a certain number of attempts. My bank does this. So, for example, if I can't log in, I don't log in the first time, it says you've got 2 more attempts left. And if I don't get in those 2 attempts, then I've got to ring somebody and I've got to give them all sorts of information that I can't find. That's how it works. So you could also use biometric access. That's fingerprints or retina, or you could use smart cards. Okay. So those are ways that you can mitigate, again, limit the damage caused by a brute force attack where someone tries to break into your account by just trying to guess your password repeatedly. And it's all done with a clever little app. Okay. So that is, I've got lots of blank slides here. This is exciting. I've got some questions. I've got a suspicion that some of you can answer the questions today. So what is an alternative name for malicious code? I would say fingers on the buzzers. We haven't got buzzers, but is it A, B, C or D? What's an alternative name for malicious code? A nasty one, this, because all of these we've talked about today. Any ideas, ladies and gentlemen? What is an alternative name for malicious code, do we think? Let me try and get rid of this as well. I've got more screens than I know what to do with. Oh, I can see some answers coming through. It takes a second. So we've got, let's have a look. We have got, oh, look at this. This is good. We've got Regular Joe who says B, malware. We've got Playmore1236 who says malware. We've got Blomper who says malware. I've got a feeling that you guys are, well, do you know what? You are all absolutely right. You are a bunch of superstars. So there is a round of applause for my gratitude. What about SQL? What does it stand for? Sequencing query language, structured question language, or structured query language? And a bonus point if you can tell me what type of application this might be used to write a query for. Ooh, Playmore's come in with a C. Playmore, you are fast. Come here. There's a slight lag when I do this. I think it's about 9 seconds. Playmore's gone for C. Ooh, we've got Regular Joe with C. Look at you guys getting involved. It's much more fun when we do this. We've got Chopperer with C. Well, you guys are all good. Again, you are absolutely outstanding. There we go. It is structured query language. Maybe an evil laugh isn't appropriate. Let's not do that one. What about this one here? Viruses rely on a meep. What do they rely on? A poorly configured firewall. Oh, look at this. We had Robojelly. I take it all back. You had a C. You are also correct. We had Nige with a C and we had Blomper with a C. You guys were all superstars. Absolutely correct. What do we reckon on this one? Is it a host program, a DDoS attack, or a poorly configured firewall? What do they need? Ooh, Regular Joe's come in with A. What do we think? Is Regular Joe... Oh, Playmore coming in with C. Split the field this question. Any more ideas? What is it? Viruses rely on a... And do you know what, Playmore? You are incorrect, but I'll tell you what, it's a good answer because a poorly configured firewall could actually let a virus in, but Regular Joe has nailed it and so has Blomper. Okay, and that was the difference between a virus and a worm. Do you remember? Virus has got to have a program like an application, like an email application to sit in. They love emails, viruses. DDoS attacks are designed to bring down the government, a server, a non-networked computer. Interesting that they're so paranoid, and quite rightly so, that all of the nuclear deterrent that we have in this country, it's on non-network computers. You can't get to it from outside. They're not stupid, which is quite good. Oh, RoboJelly's coming with B for a server. Do we think that RoboJelly is correct, or do we think RoboJelly is incorrect? Playmore has also come in with a B, which I think is looking pretty good. Let's have a look. And you guys are absolutely on it. So well done. That is completely correct. Right, let's go into another one. What about this one? Brute force attacks. I think we've got a few more. Yeah, that's good. A few more coming in. That's good. We've got Blomper. Yes, you're correct. There's your round of applause. You're a superstar. That's brilliant. What about this one? Brute force attacks involve. I'm amazed you're still here after my terrible description of DDoS attacks. And RoboJelly came with a C. Brute force attacks, for this one that is, RoboJelly. Brute force attack involves trying to find the back door to a program. We hear that phrase a lot, don't we? Apple wouldn't give access to the government, wouldn't give them a back door. We've got Regular Joe with a C as well. Do you know what? You guys are absolutely spot on. It certainly is. It is trying to guess a password. It's simple as that, isn't it? And we all know this because we've all been hacked at some time and been a bit lazy with our passwords, but they've built in systems now. They built in a validation system, indeed, to stop people from having lazy passwords, from making lazy passwords. A few more coming in there. Blomper, either A, B, or C. You're sort of hedging your bets there slightly. Yeah, it's definitely one of the answers on the screen. Yeah, well done for that. In a DDoS attack, many thousands of nodes may be infected by malware prior to the main attack. True or false? It's a 50-50, ladies and gentlemen. What do we think? In a DDoS attack, many thousands of nodes may be infected by malware prior to the main attack. What do we think? Now, Regular Joe says B. Do we trust Regular Joe? RoboJelly also says B. And Playmore also says B. This is because you lot are absolute superstars. It so is. Which means that something that I said makes sense, which is quite good. And Blomper said B as well. Boom. Right. I thought that was a cuddly toy, but that's something quite sinister. Question 7. A Trojan is a way of describing how the payload is delivered rather than the payload itself. So that means that it's not the virus or the worm, it's how it's delivered. Is this statement true? It's a 50-50. Is this statement true, or is this statement false? Regular Joe is fast. Regular Joe says A. Do we think Regular Joe is right? Someone's taken away the down thumb thing. That's good. I feel happier now. Blomper said A. I think RoboJelly said A as well. Which means you guys are absolute superstars. A lot of stuck. That's really good. This isn't easy, by the way. It's computer science. It's not easy. This is quite hard stuff. So that's really, 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 really good. Right, we're almost there. Actually, I think this is it. This is actually a lie because I'm not going to do that next time. I'm going to go on to a new topic. Right, so we have done 42 minutes. Just a few key things. I'm going to whiz back to, let me go right back up to slide, whatever it is here. Let's try this one. Let's go to there. Unless this thing starts to go crazy again. I just wanted to go back to this bit where I've got the big picture. Not that one. This one. It might flash a few times because it hates it when I move around quickly. I will send, I think I may have done, I can't remember, Mr. Vallely Godfrey this rather massive mind map. But now when you look at this is everything we've covered today. I mean, I have done, I don't know, 5 weeks of teaching in 45 minutes. 5 weeks of teaching, yes. So you can see here now, you've got these different areas, okay? And in terms of your mind palace, this is how you need to organise it. That we first of all got malware, we've got the data interception, the man in the middle, we've got DDoS, we've got social engineering, SQL, and brute force. And all you've got to know is how they work and then how you prevent or mitigate against them. So data interception theft, can anyone in the comments tell me how do you mitigate against data interception or theft? I'll give you a clue. Turning plain text into ciphertext. What's that? Data interception or theft, the man in the middle attack. What is the prevention for that? Can anyone tell me in the comments? This guy here. What's the prevention? And as you're thinking about that, I'm going to ask you, and you know what? They do love OCR. They do love a tick box question. They'll give you a table. Oh, encoding, regular Joe, is good. It does start with ENC though. It's N. Can we get the end of it? Turning plain text into ciphertext. Can we guess what it is? What about a DDoS? That's my next question. How can you mitigate against a DDoS attack? It's got to do with vaguely something to do with flames. Oh, regular Joe, you've nailed it. Yeah, you're outstanding. Encryption, okay? So up here, for this one, encryption's the way you prevent it, because you scramble the code. So even if the data gets intercepted, it's useless, because they can't read it. What about a DDoS? Something to do with a fire engine, something being on fire. Definitely something to do with fire. Anyone remember what that one's all about? That was the horribly complicated one where we're trying to bring down Xbox's servers. Anyone remember what that DDoS attack was? 10 people watching, 13 in. Really good. Mr. Vladdy Godfrey will be very happy with that. Oh, Bloomper, you are a superstar. It absolutely is a firewall. That is outstanding. Let's just do 2 more and then we will call it a day. This one. Malicious code. How can you prevent it or limit it? What can you do? We'll do this one and 1 more. I don't think I told you what the prevention method for social engineering was. Actually, we'll come back to that. So malware or malicious code. How can you limit its... I'll give you a clue. It starts with the word anti. And it's not freeze or gravity. Neither of those two. Any ideas? Any ideas at all? Anti something. Okay. It is. Oh, Bloomper's got it. Bloomper's a superstar. Look at you. It is absolutely. It's anti-malware. Right, last one. I didn't tell you this one, actually, guys. Social engineering. I don't think I told you anyway. Staff training. Staff training or ban USB drives. I think I did say it. So train staff to recognise phishing scams and farming scams. Train your staff. I might not have mentioned that. That's really important for social engineering. Right, last one before we go. Let's go for brute force attacks. Right, it's a free-for-all. Write down something you can do to prevent a brute force attack. And we talked about all the things you can do with passwords. So can anyone give me let's try and get as many of these down as we can. Ways that you can prevent a brute force attack or limit it or reduce the likelihood of it happening. What could you do? Brute force attacks. So this is where people try to break into your, try to guess your password by, oh, hello, we've got some stuff coming here. Let's have a look. Blomper is on it. Have a longer, more complicated password. I like it. Longer password, 1 mark. Complicated passwords. Regular Joe has come into the game with password complications such as character count, special characters, all of that, guys, okay? That's brilliant. Oh, let's do the last one. What's the last one I haven't done? I did social engineering. I did... No, this one's hard. Let's finish on the nastiest one, okay? Can we guess what... This is 2 words. And the first one, let's stick with data. And the second word begins with V. Okay? Data something, V. So you look at the data to make sure that it's not got any malicious SQL code in there. Okay? What do we think it is? Data what? Data V. Oh, regular Joe, you're so close. You're almost there. It's not, but it kind of is a way of verifying it, but it's not verification. Right, it's data VAL, and you're very close, regular Joe. Data VAL, data val. Any idea? It doesn't fall off the tongue, but it's definitely data. Oh, Oh, look at that. Blomper's come in with this. This is data verification. I know that Blomper's going to appear in a second on my feed because I can see your answer. And you, Blomper, are absolutely spot on. It is data validation. And you too are right, regular Joe. Well done, guys. You've done really well today. That is a complex topic. So I'll put some chapter headings on this. I'll get it out to you. I'll send you a copy of this, what do we call it, knowledge organizer. And I've got another one that's got the mitigation on it as well. So please, when you revise this, go and watch my weird little video on the Mind Palace for system threats, because I think you might find it really useful. My students did, on average, 1/3 better when I taught it with a Mind Palace. It's a bit weird, but your brain remembers interesting stuff, not data validation. So just go for that instead. It's been an absolute pleasure. Have a lovely, lovely evening, guys, and I will see you in 1 week's time, and we'll do exactly the same thing again. Have a great week. See you all later, guys. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.